Welcome everyone. This is Typography Design 113. This is our Mod 12 and this is week 3. Thanks for joining us, all those who came to class and who are joining me remotely from home. I appreciate it. And we want to welcome Randall. Thank you for coming. All right. Well, we have a lot to talk about, but first things first, let's get some class business, some housekeeping out of the way. We have a holiday break coming up. So yay, is everybody excited for that? Whether or not you like Christmas time, we do get the time off and you get to spend it however you like, unless you have to work. So let's talk about that. So this is our last full week that we'll have, so you'll be turning in week 3's work. So any late week 2 work that needs to be turned in has to be turned in this Saturday to still get points for it. And then week 3's work is due this Saturday as well, 11:59 Mountain Standard Time. So make sure you get that in. Now, having said that, please plan ahead because everybody and their dog are going to be uploading and internet's going to go slow, things are going to crash, you're going to have some issues. So please make sure you try to get it in a little bit earlier than midnight on Saturday, just because to avoid everybody else on campus-wide trying to do the same thing. All right, our break will start on Sunday, December 17th. So mark your calendars, and it will go through December 30th. So we have 2 weeks off, which is it's bittersweet. It's great that we're going to have all that time off with family and friends and have that holiday time. But it's easy to get behind and lose touch in class. So I really want you to still reach out to me via email if you can. Communication will be hit and miss. I will still try to respond, within 24, 48 hours. But because we're on break, things are going to be a little slower. I will not be available during the holiday, 24th, 25th, etc. So just make sure that you guys are aware of that. But I am going to be available up through that time. And hopefully you aren't thinking too much about school at this time. You can get your assignments in and rest easy and enjoy the break. So yes, we are very excited. It's just kind of Mod 12 is an odd time to have class because there is that 2-week break. Now, for those of you who are falling behind or maybe not have been doing so hot in this class so far, you have 2 weeks if you wanted to catch up. So that's 2 extra weeks this mod than any other mod gets. So you have time to work on your week 3 work. Week 2 work will not be accepted after this Saturday. So week 1 and week 2 work will no longer be accepted after this Saturday. However, you will still be able to get your week 3 assignments in, and you have 2-3 extra weeks to do this work. So hopefully you're not playing catch up during the holidays and you can just enjoy it and relax. But just want to let you know December 17th through December 30th is our 2-week break. And again, emails will be kind of spotty. I will try to reply as best I can leading up to Christmas, but once 24th and 25th hit, I will not be available. So just so you know, and then we'll start back up January 2nd, which is a Tuesday. So our lecture will begin January 2nd, so right after New Year's. And are there any questions about that holiday break and how it's going to work? You won't have any discussions during that week, those 2 weeks, and unless you're making up late work, you shouldn't have any assignments during those 2 weeks. So you can actually enjoy the break, and then we'll do week 4 coming back after New Year's. Okay, good. It'll be a good break. So remember, just get your work in, come to the multi-session tomorrow, pass off as many assignments as you can. So really your holiday can start on the 13th instead of the 17th. So you could have 4 extra days attached to your 2-week break if you can get your assignments turned in tomorrow. So work hard and try to get these done as soon as possible. And by all means, come see me during the multi-session for some one-on-one help and pre-grading feedback for you on these assignments. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it too. It'll be a good break, kind of recharge your batteries, so to speak. All right, let's talk about our agenda. We've got a lot to cover. We may not get to all of this because I want to focus more on the demo of the assignment, and I want to show you how to do. You're going to be required to create a wedding invitation. Have any of you looked ahead to see what we're doing? Okay, perfect. So we're doing a wedding invitation. And there's a few things in the requirements that they're asking you to do. You've got to create a monogram. And don't worry, it's not as overwhelming as it sounds, but I'll show you 3 different ways to tackle that monogram in our demo today. So you'll have to include a monogram, and you'll design a wedding invitation based off of the text that is provided to you, and that's under the assignment. Assignment 3, you'll download the text. You cannot alter the text in any way. You can style it, you can group it and design with it, but you can't change what it says. Does that make sense? You can't change the wording, but you can style it. So that's that. And then on the assessment, you're going to be required to do some more typesetting exercises. This time we're going to be laying out a page layout with pull quotes, and we're going to be formatting it in columns and still aligning our text to the baseline grid. A lot of this stuff is just review for the assessment 3, just like last week's. So, or I'm sorry, was it week 1 that we did typesetting? So you'll be required, it's just a refresher on the assessment. I will be posting short, quick demos on how to do these assignments. Probably they'll be posted by Wednesday, so you'll have that. I'll probably try to record one tonight after lecture, so you at least have the major one, and then tomorrow I'll do a quick refresher on the assessment formatting and how to do the assessment. Okay, let's see what else we've got. Week 2 grades and review. Please check your grades, especially by this Saturday, to make sure everything has been entered correctly. When we start getting towards the end of week 3, a lot of students start looking at their grades and say, hey, wait a minute, week 1 I didn't get the points for such and such, or I turned something in and it didn't get graded, or whatever it is. So we want to kind of clean up and make sure you guys are keeping your eye on your grades, so that when you're turning in your final, it's not 2 weeks worth of or 3 weeks worth of grades that need to be adjusted. So if I allowed you a chance to resubmit, make sure that got resubmitted and graded accordingly, and just make sure you're keeping an eye on your own stuff. There's over 35 students in this class, I think over 32 students in this class, so a lot to keep track of, and I'm known to make mistakes. So just keep tabs on me and make sure that you reach out in time, because there's nothing I can do the eve of the final. So make sure that this week you're kind of keeping your eye and make sure grades are okay. I've already had students reach out to me and say, hey, what about my grade? And just please keep in mind that if you're turning in your assignments and you're doing well, you still need to take the daily checkpoints, because if you are getting zeros on the daily checkpoints, it will significantly weigh your grade down. So you need to make sure you're staying on top of those as well. And if you've come to class, or you know how I structure my classes, I usually go through the quiz questions, a few of them during the week. And it looks like I forgot to turn on my video, so I'll turn this on and say hi to everyone real quick. Say hello, and wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And now we'll jump right back into our lecture. Remember, the late submissions, like I said, need to be turned in at the end of this week. So I think that's all we needed to do. This is discussion 2. We don't need that. Okay, so we're going to learn how to set type today, and we're also going to be going through our assignment 3 and our assessment 3. So first thing I want to do is start with the quiz questions. So has anyone taken today's quiz question? Has any of you taken today's quiz? Okay, so you guys can help us with the first question. All right, so question 1, you'll obviously want to watch this video. Today we're going to be going over the rules, so we're a little step ahead of ourselves right now with the question, but we'll learn the 19 rules of typography. Rule number 7 states that for body copy you should use what? A, B, C, or D? Someone said B. C? That's right, B, a medium, regular, or book weight text. That makes sense for body text, right? You want it to be legible and heavy enough that it will print well. Okay, let's do the next one. This is tomorrow's. And I do apologize, I'm just going to be whizzing through this pretty quickly because we have so much to cover today. Centered alignment is what? Is it commonly used for poetry and lyrics, can cause rivers in the text, should be used for optimal balance, or is recommended for paragraph text? Center alignment. It's commonly used for poetry and lyrics. You'll often see the lyrics of songs, if you ever Googled them, they're always center aligned. And same thing with poetry, if you've ever read a book with lots of poetry in it, it's all centered aligned. And this video will explain more. Okay, let's do Thursdays. All right, reverse text. What do you think? A, B, C, or D? Is the light colored text on a dark background? Should never be used, tires the eye in long paragraphs, and can be effective for emphasis. Select all that apply. What do you think? A, B, C, D, or all? So I'm going to say these three. Let's see. Yes, so it's A, C, and D for this one. So you can use reverse text, you just have to use it tastefully. That's why B is wrong. So yes, it's light colored text on dark background, and it's really harsh on the eyes, so that's why we say use it tastefully, use it sparingly. But it can tire the eye in long paragraphs. If you're laying out a really long magazine article or a really long article, you want to avoid the reverse text, but it's okay to use for a pull-out quote or a short burst of text is fine. And then it can be very effective for emphasis. It can be used to catch the eye. All right, let's do Fridays. So negative or white space, I often refer to it as white space, but it's also called negative space, should always be at the bottom of a composition or is wasted design space that needs to be filled, should always be on the right side of a composition, or can help lead the eye to a specific part of the text. What do you guys think? D, that's what I'm thinking too. That's correct. So it can help lead the eye to a specific part of the text. Very good. All right, I think we're good here. I'll let you guys do Saturday and Sundays. Hopefully you can take a quick screenshot of this. All right, now let me pull up our slides real quick. And I want to talk to you a little bit about Assessment 3. Because Assessment 3 is a slight review on what we did last week. So let's talk about the elements of a page. Has anyone laid out a magazine article before, or maybe aside from our assignment that we did? Have you ever had any experience doing that? Okay, so not a lot have, and as you get further into the program, you will be doing exercises and projects and assignments that do that. But how many of you read magazines? Yeah, so whether it's juicy celeb gossip or a gamer magazine or Time, you want to catch up on the news of the nation. There's magazines out there for every kind of person, every interest. And now that you're focusing on elements of a page, and we're going to be learning about hierarchy, I want you to look at the magazines that you are reading and kind of try to spot out those elements. If you have a magazine sitting next to you, open it up and let's see if we can find these elements on a page. So we all read magazines or have read one, or whether it's sitting in the doctor's office or we have a subscription to one, we've read one. So elements of the page, where does it start? Well, let's start at the top here. This top area is called the top margin, okay? This left area here is the running head. And the header is usually the largest part of the magazine article or the largest element of a page. So the header, whether it is a magazine article or in your case, is just a one-page design article layout, you're going to want the header to be large and in charge, okay? So it's generally the largest element aside from graphics if you use a picture, but this class isn't using graphics. So usually the graphic is the largest element on the page and then the header comes second. But in this case, since we're doing typography, your header should be very big, very bold, and kind of out there, so we know where it begins. Can anyone tell me what column grid this article is laid out in? Anyone take a guess? What grid system are we using? How many columns? 3, that's right. It's a trick question because you see 6 here, but each page is set up in a 3-column grid. That's right. Very good. So three columns is how this is set up, and 3 columns is very traditional magazine layout. The more columns that you include, the less text you'll need to fill because the columns get more narrower. But 3-column grid is pretty common. 2-column grid is also common. Very seldom will you ever see a 1-column in a magazine design. You'll see it in a book a lot, but 3-column grid. And then you'll notice the space between these paragraphs. What is that called? Do you guys remember? We talked a little bit about it week 1. The gutter, that's right. The gutter is the space between your paragraphs. And you definitely want space because the gutter is important because you don't want your text to run into each other and get too crowded. So we want some breathing room. Oh, so think of being on an airplane. You want some elbow room, okay? You don't want to be squished together. And then you've got your outside margin here, which is the space from the edge of the page to where your first paragraph starts, or your first column of text where it starts. So here's your outside margin. I usually use our margin line, which is that magenta line that we set up at the beginning of our document. And that's what I use to set up my columns and my first paragraph, or I'm sorry, my first column of text. Let's see, the spine is obviously where the fold of the magazine starts. It's in the center of the magazine, and it's the spine is usually bound in different ways, whether it's stapled or it's perfect bound with adhesive. Let's see, the inside margin is also the same amount of space as the outside margin is to the first column of text. So the inside margin is the space between the inside of the page and the last paragraph of that page. And it should be the same amount of space as the outside margin. So they should be evenly positioned. Bottom margin, same thing, the space from the bottom and the column, as well as the top margin from the beginning of the text. Folio, can anyone tell me what a folio is? We're asked to include that on our assessment 3. Any guesses? What's a folio, do you think? Yeah, it's the footer, right? The page number or the name of the publication or the date and the year. It's the footer of, just like when you'd write a paper for an assignment for class, you'd include a header and a footer. The footer is the folio. So the folio is definitely the page number. It sometimes can have the name of the publication or the date, but definitely the page number. So the folio is what tells you what page you're on. Now for this assignment, we're going to be required to include a folio. However, it won't seem like it's very pertinent to us right now doing a 1-page layout, but when you're laying out a 100-page magazine or a 1,000-page book, you're not going to want to go number it manually on each page 1,000 times or 100 times. So I'm going to show you how to include a folio on your master page, which will automatically insert it in the same place very accurately and create uniformity, and also save you a lot of time as you move forward and add extra pages. Not in this assignment, but in future assignments. So it's a good habit to get into. Can anyone tell me what column the pull quote is in? You heard of that, the pull quote? Okay, so a pull quote is, if you'll think back to your magazine reading days, a pull quote is a large quote that kind of stands out in the article. So this pull quote here is in bold, and it's in the last column of the article. And a pull quote is generally in a different font style. It's usually bolder. It's usually italicized. It's usually set within quotes. It's usually they pull that quote to grab your reader's attention. So usually the pull quotes are the most juiciest parts of the article, and it makes you want to read more. Yeah, so you've definitely seen them. You just never knew what they were called. Exactly. So this is, now you know. So these pull quotes are very interesting things that are pulled out of the body of the text to, it adds a visual element. It's very tasteful. It helps break up long columns of text. Long columns of text can get boring. So it adds as a very nice visual element, but it also is a good way of grabbing readers' attention if you're trying to get a message across or get them to read the article. Yeah, I always read them first, especially. So it's usually the meat and potatoes of the article or something very interesting to grab your attention to make you read more. So now that you know what a pull quote is, you can kind of style it to be, pull quotes are styled in lots of different ways. This is one way. Sometimes people can put a box around it. Sometimes the pull quotes can go across 2 columns of text instead of just one. So there's a lot of different ways, or I've seen them in the center of the page right here. You can do something in the center. So there's no right and wrong as far as position is concerned, but you definitely want to make sure that it's lined up with the columns in some way. All right, and then byline is who the article is by, and that lies really tiny and small underneath the header. And folio, yep, the page number there. And other than that, this is elements of a page. So this is kind of the nitty-gritty of what you're going to be required to do in your assessment 3. Are there any questions about that? Okay, good. It's pretty straightforward. Okay, I want to reiterate the function of a grid. Grids are very important, and I showed you how to do the baseline grid of last assignment. So the baseline grid are that blue line that I guess the notebook paper view that allows you to line your text on that baseline. So everything lines up, even your columns of text line up. It makes it neat and clean and very uniform, and that's what I'm going to be looking for too. For this assessment, you're going to be required to turn in your InDesign file, not a PDF. So I'm going to be checking to see if you're including the function of your grid and you know how to grasp that concept. Grids are your friends. Don't be intimidated. We just need to remember how to set them up really quick. You can set your articles up in lots of different ways, even a 12-column grid if you wanted, but this is how it should look to the eye. And this will help the fluidity of the content. This will make text flow better. Consistency really is the key, and this is also going to tie in really well with typographic hierarchy. We're going to learn the importance of that. It also follows one of the rules of the 19 rules of typography. Just rule number 14 is a reminder, this clearly indicates paragraphs, but be careful not to upset the integrity. So remember, just choose one type of indication to keep the text flowing. So in your paragraph, what I'm referring to is here for each paragraph, they have a return, a space between each paragraph, okay? But if you can choose to delete that space and just do a paragraph indent. So what this rule is saying is do one or the other. So you can do this, that's your indent. And if this was the second paragraph, you can do the indent. But you should never have a space and an indent. So just choose one or the other. Does that make sense? So either an indent to indicate the paragraph or a return, but never both. Okay, good. So that's what this rule is reminding us. So, and then limit your drop cap or enlarge caps to the beginning paragraph only. You should never have a drop cap on each paragraph, especially. It just indicates where the article begins. So you won't need it on every paragraph. A little bit more information on pull quotes. It's like I said, it pulls the interesting information out, grabs your attention. We're examples of that because we read those first. Just use contrast and techniques to pull them out. You can use color, you can use size, font style, placement. Just make sure that you have plenty of space around the pull quote and it's not running into the rest of your text and it doesn't interrupt the text in an uncomfortable way. So we want it to look nice. And then we won't need to know about captions. All right, well, we're not going to get into the design principles because we're not designing any visual elements, but I did want to show you this pull quote here. You can easily spot it because they use color and they also used a larger, bolder font and pulled it out of the paragraph. So this is a really neat way of using a pull quote. So I just wanted to emphasize that. All right, let's talk about hierarchy for just a minute. We're going to shift gears. And once we touch on hierarchy, I promise the lectures are almost over. We're going to design, and I have an exercise for us to do, and it'll be fun, I promise. All right, let me pull I'm sharing the wrong one, sorry. There we go. All right, we just need to understand the principles before we go into the design. So I want to talk about the designer's main goal. What is your goal for this assessment? It needs to be legible and readable, okay? And the best font typesetting choices are where the readers notice the message and not the type of font. So what do I mean by that? Well, it answers the question why every designer needs 3 levels of typographic hierarchy, okay? Can anyone tell me what hierarchy is? When you hear me say it, what does that mean to you? Any guesses? What is hierarchy? It's a big word, but it's easy to implement. Judgment of class. Yep, that's it. That's actually a really good example. Or order. I like that. Very well. Yeah, so what it rules over everything else, hierarchy. So when I'm talking about hierarchy, let me see if I can find an example. Let me see. Give me 1 second. My pages aren't loading. Here we go. There we go. So hierarchy. So hierarchy is what directs the eye. So the larger things are on the top. As you progress down the page, things get a little bit smaller. Why is that? Well, it's showing the larger stuff is the more important stuff. And then in your message, as the lesser information gets presented, it gets smaller and smaller. So hierarchy organizes and it directs the reader by grouping together certain elements to create a focal point of interest. So yes, you're right. It is the judgment and order. It's the way our eyes perceive the message. If something is in large type, our eye goes to it first, right? So we want to put the most important information in the large font, the less information in a smaller font. So that it's not competing, the messages aren't competing. So even if you're not familiar with the term hierarchy, you've likely run into typographic hierarchy many times. So just picture a newspaper with a headline or subheadline in body copy. This is a classic example of 3 levels of typographic hierarchy. And the approach, and it's still used today, both in print and online. You've got the big headline, you've got a subhead, and then you've got the body text, right? And let me see if I can drag a picture. Let's see. Talk to you a little bit about this real quick. See if I can share this image real quick. It's thinking. Nope. Won't let me. Let me try a different way. Bear with me 1 second. I've got so many things open. Okay, so here we go. So here's your newspaper. So you've got the headline, which is level 1, which is the most important information. That's what's going to grab the reader's attention. Then you've got the subhead, which kind of gives a short and sweet definition of what the article's about. And then you've got the body text, which is your level 3, which is much smaller. So you can see in terms of size, this designer has told us what to read first and in what order. So these days, our headlines or titles don't have to be 6 inches tall to catch readers' attention, but the image here does provide a dramatic reminder of what typographic hierarchy is all about. It's organizing and formatting your type choices in such a way that readers or users can clearly see what is most important. And this enables them to easily navigate the layout at a glance and quickly scan to find the information that they're looking for. So this enhances readability and usability. All right, let's look at another example. Pull it in here. And I'll delete this one. All right, so look at this example here. The no hierarchy, limited hierarchy, improving, and then much better. Do you see the difference? So how can you create an effective hierarchy in your design? when you're going to be laying out your article, I want you to be asking yourself, how can I create effective hierarchy? Look at the difference. Look at the last much better example, and then the no hierarchy. No hierarchy doesn't make me want to read it at all, but it's more visually pleasing when there is hierarchy, right? So adding the 3 separate levels of typography, it's a great place to start, and it will be sufficient for many designs. So your level 1, generally your level 1 typography will be the most important content or information, and that's at the top. So this should be the most immediately visible typography element in your design, okay? So in this case, that's the headline. Your level 2 elements usually help organize your design into sections or group-related information together. They shouldn't stand out as much as your level 1, so they shouldn't be competing in size, but they should clearly direct the viewer to the different parts of the design and kind of help them navigate to the next step. Then level 3, which is your body text here, for a text-heavy layout, level 3 typography is generally the meat of the design. This is where the copywriting lives, where you get into the message of your design, and it could be long, sometimes it's short, sometimes a whole article or a short note or a brief description. But the primary concern for level 3 hierarchy is that it's easy to read, since the font size will likely be somewhat small. So in this case, that's the body text. So as an example, I want to show you an ad. Let's see if it'll let me grab it. Nope, it's not gonna, well, maybe. Hang on. All right, hold on, I just clicked out of my image, now it won't let me share it. Anyways, are there questions about hierarchy? So we've got level 1, level 2, and level 3, right? Let me see if I can drag it. I'm not gonna worry about it. It won't let me bring the image in. That's a shame. Okay, anyways. All right, so hierarchy and text. So ways to create hierarchy in order. You've got line breaks, font, contrast, combination, size, style, leading, grouping, and color. We won't have a ton of time to go over everything, but I'll show you a few tips and tricks on how to kind of get around that. All right, so let's see if there are any. Yep, no questions. Perfect. Okay, everyone open up your InDesign. We're going to practice an exercise in hierarchy. Here are just some fine touches when you're using special characters. Small caps for AM and PM acronyms. And then remember, put dates and ordering in superscript, math and subscript. And then in the type special characters, you can use hyphens, you can use, there's lots of shortcuts, quotation marks for your pull quotes. And when you have InDesign up, let me know. We ready? All right, perfect. So, got it. Okay, good. So now I'm going to share my screen. We're going to talk about, oh, I need to pull up InDesign real quick. All right. So I've got InDesign open. And I'm going to paste some text. I'm going to send you some text in the chat box. And then we're going to talk about it, and we're going to do an exercise with it. You can choose to participate if you want or not. I'm not going to call on you if you don't want to, but you're welcome to volunteer to kind of show off what you've done. Here is the paragraph, or just work on it on your own. I want you to take this text and I want you to place it into a document. It doesn't matter what size at this point. Just paste it into a text box. just like this, okay? And as you're doing that, I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're going to do with this exercise. So basically, we're talking about organizing the page, layout of page elements. So page layout and hierarchy kind of go hand in hand. It's the art of manipulating the user's attention on a page to convey meaning, sequence, and points of interaction. So the basic page layout is, we'll talk about visual hierarchy. What's important? So I want you to look here and tell me what is important. What information is important here? The concept of visual hierarchy plays a part in all forms of graphic design. So kind of put simply, the most important content should stand out the most, and the least important should stand out the least. What do you think is the most important information here, right off the bat? You're invited, absolutely. Zelda's birthday party. You're invited to Zelda's 30th birthday party, right? So the purpose of this event is the most important. Exactly. That first line is the most important. So should that one stand out the most or stand out the least? Right, the most. Perfect. Okay, so basically with this example, this text right now shows that this wasn't formatted with any visual hierarchy at all. Things are kind of running into each other and nothing stands out, correct? So it's passable, but not great. What's the most important information in that paragraph? Well, we've started out talking about the title, so I'm going to go ahead and separate the title like that. All right, you can guess that the first sentence is the most important, but otherwise it's really hard to tell since the whole block of text is kind of visually monotonous. So once you've read it and realize it's an invitation, now you can tell from context, but you had to, you got to read it first. So let's improve on this example. I want you to, don't style it, don't do anything. Just by breaking up the text, I want you to group it with return. So like I did here, I didn't style the title, I just gave it a break. So I gave it a return. I want you to add returns to break up and group the important information. So once you've done that on your page, you can let me know if you want to share your screen so we can see it. So we're going to basically improve on this example. Don't style it. Don't change font size, nothing. Just use your return key, and I want you to format it a little bit just by breaking up the text. Because what we need to improve on is the white space. White space is one of the best tools that you have for organizing visual hierarchy. So you as a designer is just going to determine what information we need to group. So it's a cheap and graceful way of pulling apart monotonous blocks of information. So let me know once you've done it. If you'd like to share your screen, great. If not, Lauren, do you want to share? Perfect. Okay, I'll stop my share and then you should be able to pull up your screen. And then Randall, if you want to share, you're welcome to. Perfect, exactly. So what Lauren did here was she just added white space in between the paragraphs. So what she did was she kept the title the same, or at the top, big and bold. Well, it's not formatted, but it's at the top, so that's where your eye goes first. And then she grouped it what you're supposed to dress, where dinner's going to be served, the when and the where, and then how to RSVP. So excellent job. That's exactly what I was going for. Anyone else want to share? You might have done it differently. There's no right and wrong. We're just practicing giving white space in between your paragraphs. Anyone else? Okay, so let's look at this. So now, yeah, you can break it up. So what we're going to do is the information, phone number, that's all good. We're going to want the when, we're going to want the where, and then we're going to want, please RSVP, or we can do where, Zelda's house, and then I could even RSVP like this. Okay, so I didn't change any formatting. All I did was give it some white space. So that's number one. That's kind of, like I said, the quick and dirty, cheap way and graceful way of pulling apart monotonous blocks is just adding a return and breaking up the big block of text. Now it's not so hard on the eyes. Now this actually it's starting to look good. So we can at least see distinct groups of information. and the headline here is at the top, Zelda's 30th birthday party. And that stands out a bit more because it has white space around it. And so does the not quite as important RSVP message at the bottom. That also has white space around it. But the text that your eye falls on first is probably the "you're invited to" right there at the top. It's sitting up there by itself at the upper left corner where every speaker of left to right languages looks first. So that alone gives it an unwarranted importance. So you also have typography and positioning at your disposal. Now let's kind of jazz it up a little bit. Why don't we add some emphasis to important parts? Now you can use formatting. I want you to use size and bold to emphasize important things. So I'll let you format this just a little bit. It doesn't have to be perfect. And once you've done that, let me know if you'd like to share your screen. That's okay, Emma, if you have 5 different spaces, it doesn't have to be, there's no right and wrong. I'm just kind of showing you how to group it, but space is good. So I kind of want you to take some time and format this a little bit. I want you to use size and bolding to emphasize certain information. Big, bold fonts really do the trick for importance, of course. Our eyes are drawn to dense, contrasted shapes with really heavy visual weight. So the invitation's most important line is a giant font. Let me show you what that looks like. Oops. Okay, so here's an example. Right, like this. So you can see the big bold font, and the invitation's most important line is the giant font. The second most important line is a larger font, but not as large, and then the body text is just a normal size. So similarly, so here's the body text right here. This is the larger font, and then this is the largest font, which is at the top. The tiny lightweight font used for directions or comments indicates that you may want to read this, but it's really not that big of a deal if you miss it. So the smaller font, not important. So it doesn't need to be formatted like that. So you might have formatted it a little different than this example, and that's okay. This is just another way to break up the text and kind of add some emphasis and visual hierarchy. Spatial positioning does something a little bit more complex here. It's being redundant with the white space. It's separating some blocks of text from others, different paragraph formatting. And it also enhances the importance of the when and where, because that's also very important. The way that they did this is by making them stand on almost empty left margin aligned with the headline. So the important information is aligned at the same point, where the least information is aligned at the far right. So this is just another way of formatting something. Does anyone have an example they want to share? Something might have done it differently, and that's okay. All right. So we'll stop there with that. While we're in InDesign, let's practice paragraph styles, okay? We're asked to format or do our assessment. So we'll go ahead and do that. I just want to get rid of this. If you'll follow along with me, I'm just going to fill this paragraph up with some, just some lorem ipsum filler text. And I'm going to add a return here, these paragraphs, because I'm going to show you how to include a paragraph style in your document. That's part of the requirements for assessment 3. Now, to do a paragraph style, you're going to want to go to Window and make sure that your styles and paragraph styles are pulled up. So if you go to Styles, Paragraph Styles, and your Paragraph Styles box will pull up right here. Okay? Can you see my InDesign? Okay. Now, basically paragraph styles includes both character and paragraph formatting attributes. It can be applied to one paragraph or a range of paragraphs. Paragraph styles and character styles are found on separate panels. So paragraph styles will take the body of the text, whereas the character styles usually are used for drop caps or any character styles that you want to apply to a single character. All right, but you can do both in the paragraph styles. So the way that you create a paragraph style is you'll highlight a block of text, and in this case I'm going to give it, I'm going to change the font to Times New Roman. Just something different, some serif font. I'm going to change this to regular. This is going to be my body text. Regular, and then I'm going to change the leading to 12. Let's do 13. There we go. All right, and then let's do the second paragraph here. Font size is 10. I'll keep it at 14, and we'll keep it at Arial. Third one, I'll do Helvetica, bold condensed. That way we've got 3 distinct paragraphs that we can tell are very different. So for this first one, what we're going to want to do is highlight it, and then we'll go to paragraph here at the top, this far right icon, new paragraph style, or you can click on this page here by the trash can at the bottom right, create new style. And then for our paragraph, you're going to double click it, and it will bring up your paragraph style options. You can name this body text 1 or whatever you want to name it to remember what style you're applying it to. And then you can hit OK. So now if I want to, so now this has been saved. I'll create another one. I'll name this body text 2 and hit OK. All right, so now if I want to change this block of text, I can apply body text 1 or body text 2. So you see that third paragraph is now being formatted, and this is a huge time saver. So this is very important. So you basically just click in a paragraph or select what paragraph style you want to apply. Now, if you've made a change since you've applied a paragraph style, so in this case, if I change the leading, you'll notice there's a +1 next to it. And that +1 means that you've added something since you have formatted it. If you right-click and click on Redefine Style, it will now include that new addition in your paragraph style. Yeah, it changes the format, exactly. So this should just be a quick refresher. In this case, the paragraph style for this middle column, if I wanted to change it to the body text 1, I could just simply click on that. So now it formats all of it, or I can highlight all of it and pick a paragraph style to apply to the entire body. So this is very helpful when you're formatting your assessment because it's a time saver, it's good practice, and it keeps everything uniform and consistent. So you don't have to manually go into every paragraph and do it. You can save your paragraph styles and pull it up next time. Are there any questions about paragraph styles? Okay, perfect. All right, now let's dive into assignment 1 real quick. Or actually, we're in InDesign, so let's stick here. I'll do a quick tutorial on that. You might want to pull up your assessment on your assessment 3 on your homepage, just so that you can have the instructions in front of you. I'm going to do the same, and we'll format our new document. I do know it's 8.5 by 11, so we'll go ahead and file new document. And we want to keep it, we want to deselect facing pages, uncheck that box. We don't want that. Unless we were doing a magazine layout, but we're not. We're only doing a one-page layout, I believe. So with InDesign still open, we'll go ahead and create a new document. You can keep the page size letter, 8.5 by 11. That's perfect. And I'm waiting for my page to load. See, here we go. Now for this assignment, you will only need to submit your InDesign file, okay? You don't need to submit a PDF or anything like that. All right, margins. The top 0.5, left is 0.5, the right is 0.5, and the bottom is 0.75. By unchecking this link, it will make sure that they don't all wind up being the same value. It will allow you to edit each one. So it kind of, by keeping the link together, it kind of makes all the settings the same, but by unchecking that link, it will allow you to change the settings manually. All right, so I've got 0.75 here at the bottom, and then we'll want to set up our columns in either a 2 or 3 column grid. This is your choice. I'm going to use a 3 column grid. We did 2 column last time, and 3 column is kind of fun. So I'll do a 3 column grid, and then you'll want to create your text boxes to fill your columns. So remember, we go to View, and we'll go to Show Text Threads. And then I'm going to grab my type tool, and I'm going to just place my columns of text, or I'm sorry, my text boxes. And I'm just going to copy and paste them. Or you can hold down your Alt Option button and click and drag, and that will copy it. So now what I've done is I've lined up the text boxes between the purple magenta margin lines, and I've left the space in the gutter clean. My text boxes is not going over in that area. Everything is lined up with the gutter and the margin line, and all my text boxes are uniform size. Now that I have the text boxes laid out, I need to link them so that when I flow my text in, it will flow into all 3 text boxes. So what I'm going to do is click this larger anchor point here at the bottom right, and then I'm going to click anywhere in the next text box. Do the same with the middle column. Click that larger white anchor point, and then click in the 3rd column. And now that we've got our view set to our thread display, and you can see that right here, text threads, it shows that each text box is linked with this blue diagonal line. It's kind of invisible. It's just showing you that each text box is linked together. So now I can double click in the 1st column, go to File, Place, and I'm going to place the text document that they have given me under the assessment. So you can find that, download the Word document with the text to use for this assignment under the assignment 3. I'm just going to see where I saved it real quick. I've got a million things on here, but I think I found it. So I select the document, and it should flow it all in. You can either copy or import the text from the Word document that they've provided into InDesign. You can either copy and paste. I find this to be way easier, just to flow it in and have the text boxes already set up. You want to choose your alignment and column width that make for a comfortable read. I would highly recommend doing left justify on your paragraph formatting. So right now it is left justified, and that's what you commonly see in most magazine or article layouts. Then you're going to want to set up a paragraph style for your body copy. They're not giving you one, so I'm going to, I recommend for body copy, not going any larger than about 12-point font. A 12-point font in InDesign is very large, so I would start with 8-point. I wouldn't go any smaller than 8-point, and I'd probably do 8 to 10-point is probably a good place to be. So I'll highlight this, and I'm going to change it to 8-point font, like this, and I'm going to change my leading to 12, like that. And then I'm going to grab my byline and my title and fix that gap. I'm going to draw a box for my headline. Get rid of that byline. And I can format my headline at a later time. I've got my text box as a placeholder right here. And then I'm going to hold down the Shift button and select all 3 text boxes. And I'm going to bring this down a little bit. Might need to make the font a little larger to fill the columns. So we'll go 10, right like this. All right. And then I'm going to format my headline. I'll do a Helvetica bold, and I'm going to want it all caps. And then just adjust the size. I will center align the headline and kind of make this as large as possible. Okay, and then I'm going to grab my byline like this. And I'm going to keep it nice and small. I also want to format it a little bit differently. So I'll do the same Helvetica, but in this case, I'm going to make it small and a little bit different. So instead of large and bold, I'm going to make it very light and maybe italicized. I apologize, everything's running so slow. Oops. Let's try it again. I think my InDesign just crashed. Well, on that note, I guess we could take our 10-minute break while I load it back up. Sorry, guys. Are there any questions? Yeah, sorry, this is the assessment 3. That's what we're working on. We're working on the formatting, the typesetting. You're just making typesetting decisions. They're not giving you specific values, but you're going to be kind of eyeing it and making sure that you kind of have the eye for design. That's a good question. So yeah, we'll be jumping around, but assessment 3 is what we're focusing on. Okay, do any of you have it up? Do you need help formatting or getting your document set up? Mine is still loading. All right, I guess we'll go ahead and go to break so I can get my InDesign loaded back up. Sorry about that, it just crashed on me. I have like a million programs running, and so I think it went into overload. Okay, so we'll go into our 10-minute break if there are no other questions. And then when we come back, I will finish the assessment tutorial, and then we'll go into the assignment 3, which I think is a lot of fun. We're going to be learning how to use hierarchy and format a wedding invitation. And even if you're not into the wedding stuff, you can still have fun because you can use it on a poster design. It's still, the concepts we're learning can be applied to ad design, anything like that. So basically, we're just learning how to take information and format it really nicely. We'll talk about what fonts to choose and why it's important. So at that point, I'll let you guys get Illustrator up because we'll be working in Illustrator as well. When we come back in 10 minutes, I'll focus on the InDesign. We'll see you guys soon. Okay, so we're back. I do apologize. I've got okay, so I apologize. My InDesign had crashed on me, but I've got it back up where I believe we were. Now we've formatted our text. We've changed the font. I'm doing a 10-point font and a 14 leading. And then this is Times New Roman. I'm going to get rid of the byline and the headline. I'm going to place it up here because this is where my headline will go. And I'm going to format my text boxes. I'm going to highlight all three and kind of move them down until they end where I need them to. I'm going to put a return here. Whoops. I need to set up my baseline grid now. So I'll go to my InDesign preferences, click on grids, and then everything stays the same except my increment every. It needs to match my leading, which is 14. So I'm going to change it to 14. And I'll change this to 25%, and then I'll hit OK. Now I'm going to go to View, click on Grids and Guides, Show Baseline Grid. Okay, so nothing happened. Everything still it's not formatted correctly because my text is running through the lines instead of on the baseline. So I'm going to highlight these and I'm going to click on this icon here up here, balance columns. So now that I've balanced them, I'll highlight these, go to my paragraph setting, and click on Align to Baseline Grid. So now that I've done that, now everything kind of shifts down right where it needs to be. So I can zoom out and everything falls on that baseline very nice and neatly. This, I'm going to need to include a drop cap. So I can go to Window and pull up my types and tables, click on Paragraph, or I'm sorry, Character. I mean Paragraph and Character. Yeah, let's go to Types and Tables, Character. Oh, here it is. Thought I saw it up. All right, and then with my first letter of my paragraph highlighted, I'm going to increase the drop cap, and the drop cap is up here. And I usually like doing 2 or 3 lines. You can do 3 lines, that'll be good. When you see this red plus sign here at the bottom right, this means there's text that you can't see. So you need to be able to make sure that is all formatted correctly. All right, so now I've got my text lined up to my baseline grid. When the baseline grid is set up, you can choose to just go to your normal view, or you can hide the baseline grid. You don't have to see it. There we go. Thank you. And the instructions did say to take out the references. So now we can just line everything up the way that they need to be. So in this case, I could even make the drop cap a little bigger. That'll take up some space. And hold down Shift to select all the boxes. And what I'm doing is trying to get them to line up evenly. Now, you want to look for widows. What's a widow? Does everyone remember? Does anyone know what a widow is? Yeah, the single word at the end of a sentence that is just kind of hanging there by itself. Do you see that? Flexible is just hanging out by itself. Page is just hanging out by itself. Yeah, you're right, Randall. At the end of the page, at the end of the paragraph, right. So we want to make sure we get rid of the widows. Another thing we can do is highlight all of our text, and under our paragraph formatting controls, we can click this box that says hyphenate. We want to uncheck it. And by unchecking it, it will keep, not only will it fill in more space, but it will also keep words from getting cut off and hyphenated. Okay, so I'm going to kind of raise this box up a little bit, trying to get it to line up. All right, I'm going to look for my widows. I don't have any more, so that took care of that one. I'm going to use, let's see. So it won't let me pull it up exactly right, but that looks good. And then we'll make our headline. We'll format our headline. And I was going to make this Arial or Helvetica nice and bold. Just do that, and I'll increase the size. Oops. I'll do it on one line, and then I'll grab my byline. And that one can either go the far left or it can go over here. I'm going to format this a little bit. I'm going to italicize it. Let's see. There you go. I'm going to kind of bring these up a little bit. All right, so now, well, I guess I'm not going to pull these up. Now we have to, you can include a pull quote. How to do a pull quote, I'll show you. You can, oh, we need the folio. So let me show you. Those of you who have worked with master pages before, this will be a refresher. But if you go to your window, click on Pages, right here. Go to your A master. If you double click on your A master, what this is going to do is it's going to apply whatever you put on this A master to every other page that you add in this document. And in this case, we just need to add a folio. So I'm going to draw a little text box here at the bottom of my margin, in the outside of my bottom margin. And I'm going to make sure the cursor is blinking. I'm going to go to Type, Insert Special Character, Markers, Current Page Number. Do you see that? So Type, Insert Special Character, Markers, and then Current Page Number right here. And you'll see a little placeholder icon, letter. You'll see the letter A. That just holds your place. And then when you go to your page 1, you'll see there's a 1 there. Now I can keep adding pages. And let's see, this is page 7 now. So you see now it adds, every time I add a page, it will automatically number my page and put it in the same place all the time. So this is very handy if you're working with a multi-page document. In this case, we're only doing 1 page, but you still need to kind of know how to do it. Yeah, and Randall, you did that for an assignment last mod for a newsletter, so this should be kind of a refresher for some of you. But this is, yeah, definitely want to include that folio. Okay, let's see, what else do you need to know? The pull quote. Okay, so for a pull quote, you want to pull out a very captivating part of the article. In this case, I'm just going to pull a sentence that I see. I'm going to draw a text box. Pull quotes can be achieved in a lot of different ways. In this case, I want to make it big. I'm going to italicize it, or do a bold italic, because I want it to stand out and I want it to be larger. Pull quotes can be very big. Probably not as the size of your headline, but let's see. I'm going to work on my leading a little bit. Okay, my text frame options. Okay. No, I'm not doing wraparound text. Yeah, I will do wraparound text. I'm just, what I did was when I typed in my, here, I'll tell you what I did. What I did was when I typed in my pull quote, because the leading and the increment my baseline grid is set to 14, it won't let me spread this out with looking decent. So I right-clicked on it and I went to text frame options and I went to baseline options to override the baseline grid. So I said use custom baseline grid. I'm going to keep it at 12. So I'll hit OK. And now what I'm going to want to do is go to the wraparound bounding box. Up here at the top of your screen, there's an icon that will kind of do a text wrap. Now there's a lot of places you can place this pull quote. I recommend not breaking up an entire paragraph. Wait till it's at the end of a paragraph or the beginning of a paragraph. Don't, as you can see, cut off a paragraph, like right here. See that? You don't want to cut off a paragraph or do it in the middle of a paragraph. You really want to make sure you can kind of place it, well, I guess in the middle will be okay, but just don't cut off like the last line of a paragraph. You can do it this way, or you can make it extend to 2 columns, or you can put it at the top so it catches attention. Personally, I like doing it over 2 columns, but I like it breaking up the columns of text. So I'm going to use the 2 columns of text here. Hold Shift. I'm going to kind of bring up these text boxes here. Okay, there we go. And text frame options. I think we touched on the baseline already, and that should be good. All right, so you just want to position it so it reads well. Don't forget the quotes. You need the actual quotes. I've seen it where they make the first quote really, really large. See if I can do that. Make it extra large, larger than life, and then these ones really small. Like that. Yeah, so how do you keep it from sending out the rest of the paragraph? So you're not going to be able to avoid it completely, but try not to just cut off the last line of a paragraph. Make sure it ends in a good place. So see, like I moved it here, but you can see there's the last line of a paragraph right here. So you'll need to kind of eyeball it and see. You won't be able to avoid it completely, but if you can help it, try to place it so it doesn't leave that last line. You can kind of, it's okay if it's in the middle of a paragraph. You just need to make sure it's not cutting off the last line of a paragraph. Yeah. So there's my pull quote. And then I'm going to make this drop cap a little smaller. Oops. Just like that. I'll kind of center it until it, before it changes the formatting again. And I have quite a bit of text left, so I can even bring this up a little bit more. I'm going to hold down Shift, select all the text boxes, and I'm going to move it up until, there we go. I want everything to line up. I'm going to use my tracking to kind of tighten the tracking here. I don't want to do it too much, but I want to be able to get that line so it's not cut off. I don't want that line to be in the middle. That's not how I want my top paragraph to start. All right, everything else looks pretty decent. Again, you can pull the quote from anywhere in here, but you want to just format it. Now, they say you can use color for this also. So, I mean, you can give, what I like to do is give the pull quote some color, because that is what you want to stand out. There you go. But again, I'll let you style this how you want. You can use your imagination with the color. We're going to go into our assignment 3. I'll do a demo on this, so it's just a refresher of what we did last time. But this is up to you. How you set up the paragraph styles, how you create your typesetting is all up to you. So use this paragraph and character styles in InDesign to ensure that you have a consistent treatment of the text. But watch out for widows and orphans and excessive hyphenation and the rivers in the text, okay? It does not, Lauren. It's just a stylistic thing I did. So it's okay if they're the same size. That's totally fine. I've also seen it where they're the same size like this. Let me go back to the normal size. And where the quotes are much larger than the text itself, that's also another style thing you can do, where the quote is larger and the text is a lot smaller. But you can style it any way that you want. You could also put a colored box behind it if you really wanted to add some, fill in some space and add some emphasis. So with the fill, I'm going to do a really light gray. Do something like that. You can add color. I'll let you add the color though. I don't want that going in my gutter, so but I want even amount of space on both sides. There we go. Kind of format this a little bit better. Yeah, so this kind of makes it stand out a little bit, and you can add color. I mean, if you wanted to do it a blue and this a reverse white or something, even make it black and then do a reversed color. That's interesting too. So I'll let you play around with the coloring and the styling, but this is essentially how you get the content on the page. Line it up to your baseline grid, add your folio and your pull quote, and you've got it made in the shade. So you're okay with this one. Are there any questions before we move forward to the assignment? Okay, go ahead and close out of InDesign. We're going to be working in Illustrator now, so I'm going to close out of here. And we're going to go into, let me pull up Illustrator. And we're going to do a brief demo on how to do a monogram. So if you've looked at your assignment, here we go. All right, so how many of you looked at assignment 3? Okay, good, good. So this will be a little bit of a review. Okay, so for assignment 3, we're going to combine, basically we're combining 2 typefaces to achieve contrast and create hierarchy in text. So that's the whole point of this, this objective. We're going to use 5 typographical techniques to create hierarchy, and it will explain it a little bit more in the assignment. But first thing that we need to do, and there's examples there too, is set up our document. So if you'll go to File, New, you're going to want to go to Size. Everything is running so slow today. I apologize. All right, and then you're going to want to do 4.75 by 6.75 inches. You want to make sure those are inches. And then you can choose either portrait or landscape, okay? You can just do one artboard is fine. And then it doesn't give any bleeds. Please know that this is only type can be used, no images, graphics, or clip art. Simple lines and borders or simple decorative elements that you've created within the font can be used, but just be careful not to decorate too much. We really just want to show off good typography. That's the center stage here. Make sure the color mode is on CMYK. Click OK, and your document should look something like this. All right, so we're going to go to, let's start with the monograms first. I'm going to show you 3 different ways to do a monogram because you do need to include this in your assignment. So I'm going to demonstrate 3 approaches. Fusing letters together, which is the first approach. Zoom in here. Deleting a part of a letter to infer a missing part or a missing piece, as you can see here with the Y and the A. And then the other one is interlocking letters, like you can see here, down here with the SO. So the font that I'm using today is Minion Pro. If you want to work along with me, you can choose any kind of font that you want. All right, so to begin this tutorial, we're going to create outlines. We're going to type our letters and create outlines. Now the monogram has to use the initials of whichever couple you decide to choose in the assignment. They're given, I think you're given like 4 or 5 options. So for this exercise, I just did an R and an S just to show you what you can do. So you can create this interlocking look where the R flows into the S really beautifully. I'll zoom in here so you can see that a little easier. How do we achieve this look? Well, I'll move this up here and we'll do a little demo. I'll grab you grab your type tool, type in R and S. We're going to zoom in quite a bit. Okay. So you're going to, same thing that we practiced last time was go to type, create outlines, then you'll right click on group. So now that they're their own individual vector, we've vectorized these letters. We can't edit them with the type tool now, but we can edit them with the direct selection tool because they have anchor points now that we can manipulate and change. What I want to do is click on this S and grab my direct selection tool. By right clicking or by clicking on the anchor point and holding down shift, it will allow you to select different letters or different anchor points. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click and drag and try to get part of this S to flow into the R. I'm going to kind of move my S over. This takes a little bit of finesse. I don't want to squish the S into the R. I just want the bottom portion to kind of flow into each other. So I'm going to give it a little bit of break between the R and the S. And then I'm going to click on this R. Zoom in here, grab my direct selection tool, and I'm just going to try to make sure that my anchor points kind of flow into this S a little bit. Click on this S, right click on an anchor point, and I'm going to hopefully try to get it to flow into the R a little bit. Here we go. Once you get it right where you need it to be, you can, and as you can see, there's a little gap down here, and I'll try to fix that later. But with my direct selection tool, I'm going to go in here and try to clean that up a little bit. All right, so now I'm going to highlight both of these, and I'm going to use a tool that's found under the window, drop-down window, called Pathfinder. Have any of you used Pathfinder before in Illustrator? Pathfinder has some really neat tools, shape modes, pathfinders that will help either combine, dissect, help create different effects. And with both of these selected, I'm going to click on divide. And what that's going to do is it's going to divide these little pieces now. But that didn't work because my lines are not overlapping. To get a better view, I'm going to go into view outline. So you can see a little bit better where my lines are out, or it kind of outlines the line so I can see what is touching and what isn't. Here we go. Now I'll go to view, go to preview. Okay, I'll click on this and I'll click trim. Oops. Actually, I just want to merge them, so I'll just do merge. Okay. Now here at the bottom, I want to clean this up a little bit because it's got this little lump and I want it to be smooth. So I'll grab my smooth tool here on my toolbar, and I'm just going to kind of draw until I get the effect I want. I'm going to connect the anchor points until it's smoothed out just the way I want it. It looks nice and clean. I'll even do the inside here, just like that. So now I've got my S and my R, and you can sit and play with it a little bit more until you get the exact smoothness that you're trying to go for. But I think that's good. That looks pretty decent. So that is how you intersect your letters. Now it's kind of one fluid monogram. Thanks, Angela, for coming. We'll see you. All right, now let's look at the next monogram. So I want to use negative space for the missing part of the letter. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the razor tool because the A is a compound part and it can give me some problems. So what I'm going to do, zoom out. I'm going to grab this Y and A. We're going to use this missing part exercise. So with the text type box selected, go to Type, Create Outlines, right-click, Ungroup. I'm going to zoom in here so I can see what I'm doing. You really want to get up and close for this. So with the A selected, I'm going to grab my eraser, and I'm just going to start erasing this left side of the A. I want to preserve that middle piece as much as possible. I'm just going to go here and erase this whole side, because we're going to be using the negative space to infer a missing piece, and it's also going to look like, it's going to give it a really cool effect. So if I start with the eraser tool, I can then get my line tool and kind of draw a line at the angle of this A. Zoom in nice and close. Select this. I can do a trim and delete. You can even get the eraser tool again and get nice and close. Problem with the eraser tool is it doesn't do really straight lines. So I want to make sure I can clean that up. There we go. And even with this one, nice and straight. Okay. Now when my A is the way I want it to look, I can scoot this in now. Try to get it, eyeball the height a little bit. Give it some breathing room. Like that. So that too is a monogram, and that is a really neat way to kind of use the white space or the negative space to infer that missing piece. Any questions about how I did that? So if you've seen the VA logo designed by Ellen Fletcher, you can kind of see who my inspiration was coming from. But the interior counter space can cause some issues. So I would roughly erase those parts of the A that you don't want. We can create that illusion that we're going for. So it's kind of a neat effect with that Y filling that in that gap. Okay, so let's do the interlocking exercise. And I want you to practice with me. So would you grab the type tool? We're going to practice this interlocking exercise. Grab the type tool and just type SO. We're going to practice this. Then I want you to create outlines by going to Type, Create Outlines, right-click, Ungroup. Let me know when you're at this point where you can click on each individual letter, because I want you to practice the interlocking with me. Interlocking characters creates this really cool interlocking arrangement. What we're going to be doing is working with colors here, because we want our wedding invitation to be in color. You finally have the opportunity to design in color. So we're going to use, I used a dark blue for this and then a light blue for this one. Let me know when you guys are at this point with the S and the O. Good to move forward? Okay, perfect. All right, so I'm going to give it a dark blue color. I'm going to give this one a light blue color. I'm going to zoom in so you can see what I'm doing. So with these two letters, I'm going to take the O and I'm just going to position it somewhere by the S. Okay, so that they're overlapping at some point. I'm going to select both letters. And I'm going to grab my live paint bucket, which is K on your keyboard. And I'm going to click to make this area live. And I'm going to select this portion to be dark blue. So now it looks like my S is overlapping my O. Did you see that? So we can use the live paint just because, as the name suggests, it allows us to paint live and to adjust live. And I can change interactions between these two letters without having to start from scratch. So choose the live paint bucket. You want to click on a particular segment, make it dark blue, or give it the effect that you want so it looks like it's overlapping. In this case, I wanted the S to show. And then this gives me that interlocking effect that I'm going for. Then I can select my selection tool, and by deselecting, it looks like the S is overlapping that O. So now all I have to do is I can move that O down or over, and it will remain the same. So it's a really cool, simple trick. All we need to do is use that live paint bucket tool, and then we can kind of move everything around. So we can select elements and move it around, and the interlocking remains live, which is why we call it the live paint bucket tool. So this creates a really cool effect, and this would be a really neat effect if you were to use something a little fancier font. But that is another approach to doing a monogram. Okay, does anyone have questions about the monograms? Do you need help with your exercise? Hopefully you got the same effect that I did. So there are 3 different approaches to creating a monogram. So hopefully that becomes easy. And then once you have your monogram, you can design in Illustrator and create something like this. Okay, it's supposed to be in color, so you can choose the colors you want. I'll show you how I did some of these things. Most of it is just aligning text. And again, you're given the text that you need to use with the couple's names. I just simply threw something together so you could see. But you could see some flourishes that I've added. The way that I did that is by grabbing my brush tool. And I like using the brush tool because it can give you a neat drawing effect without it basically has fewer anchor points, so it gives you more of a flush look. So what I'm going to do is try to basically mimic this drawing here. I'm going to click and use my, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. If you go to View, Rulers, and then Show Rulers, you can grab your ruler, click and drag, and this can become your guide now. So I'm going to use this guide to kind of draw my flourish. I'm going to grab my brush. I'm going to select, once my brush is selected, I'm going to make sure that it's kind of, oops, make sure I can trace it. And this is kind of where it might differ a little bit. But once I get my initial drawing, I can select my direct selection tool and kind of bring in those anchor points a little bit, kind of mess with the shape, make it a little bit rounder. You could also use your smooth tool, and I love using my smooth tool. I kind of just click and drag until I get the shape the smooth shape that I'm going for. This is a great way to add roundness and smoothness between your anchor points. Just like that, okay? And then I grab the brush tool again, and you can kind of go in here. You can grab the smooth tool, your selection tool, and kind of smooth it out. Change the shape. You don't have to do this. This is just a way to add flourishes. If you wanted to add something to your design, I wouldn't get carried away with it or spend too much time on it. But what I did want to focus on is pairing fonts together. So here's a website I'm going to put in the chat box. This will help you find wedding fonts that you can download right on your computer. I'd pick two contrasting fonts. What I did here to show, I did a scripted font and then a very clean sans serif font. And this is how I showed contrast. So you don't want to do everything in the fancy font, and some fancy fonts are very hard to read. So please try to find one that is easy to read, fairly small. And then you want the important information to stand out. So here the names are important. You want the date, that's also important. And then where it's at. So this is kind of what I've done with mine. You can style yours in any way. Just make sure that you make it nice and use color. Are there any questions about this so far? I'm going to continue to format my text. I wanted to also show you, you can go to Google and just kind of Google wedding invitations. I'll show you a picture that I found that I thought was kind of cool. This one was really neat. It's in black and white, but you could easily convert it to color. It's a little fuzzy, but give me just a second while my illustrator thinks. So here's an option. You can find one that you like, and then you can, and here they use the monogram and they made it really large. So that's kind of cool, cool option. Let me zoom out, see if we could do something like that. Let me grab a new artboard, kind of get it started. So if you grab your type tool, I'll zoom in here. You try to find a font that will be, it speaks to me and the occasion. Let me see. I just had it. Let's see. What is it called? So many fonts. I'm trying to find a fairly fancy one. And you kind of want to scroll through your fonts to see some fonts don't translate with the initials. Here we go. We'll just do this one. And this is where you can, you know, go to type, create outlines. You can create your monogram. You'll probably want to style this a little bit better than what I'm about to do. Right click, ungroup, and then you can kind of format it anyway. Do some cool tricks with it. You kind of want to play around with it, I'm sure. In this case, I'm just going to group them together real quick and show you. I can mimic this. You make it nice and large. You can even grab your pen tool and add more points. Oops. Here we go. Anyways, you can kind of get the point. I'm gonna have to go in here and change it up, but you could make it look like it's writing off the page. You can grab this pen tool. like that. All right. Anyways, you can add with the pen tool. You can format it any way. And then for this example, you can kind of grab the type. I've already typed some of it out, so I'll just change the color so that you can see it. There's the font. It's the Edwardian script. That's what I was looking for. Kind of format this. Some of it can kind of get cut off the page a little bit. You don't want to lose too much of the font. There we go. So my two contrasting fonts is this fancy scriptive font, and then I'm going to use a dark, bold sans serif to add the names. We'll use a heavy. I'll go to type, uppercase. And I'll make the font nice and small. I go to Window and go to Type, Character. It'll allow me to change the width of my font so I can kind of bring it in a little bit. I guess it doesn't matter. I'm just copying this example. You're given the text, so you can just use the text from the document, but I don't have it up right now, so I'm just kind of showing you how I can add contrast. You can even hold down Alt-Option and then just copy that same formatting. And you'll want to make sure that your smart guides are turned on so you can center everything. So if you go to View, Guides, or I'm sorry, Smart Guides, make sure they're checked. So now you can group everything and kind of center it on the page. Same with this information. You want to make sure it's centered with everything else. They'll kind of click into place when you do have it centered. And then you can go on and format the rest of the text. So basically, I want you to go and find something that inspires you. You can do, don't let it trip you up if it says a wedding on a ranch or a fancy wedding or a casual fun wedding. I want you to just be able to create something with hierarchy, okay? I want you to create something that it's colorful, not too colorful, but usually you'd stick to 2 colors, 2 different contrasting fonts, and then create a really nice monogram. And then the rest is just kind of formatting information like we practiced in our exercise. So are there any questions about this? Any questions at all? I wanted to show you another example that I thought was really tastefully done. Again, I just found this on Google. I thought this was a cool way to use 2 colors. Look at the formatting of this. We've got the serif font, the fancy font, and then they've only used these 2 fonts. They're just toggling back and forth between all caps and lowercase, and then kind of making that date stand out a little bit. Some fun places to find some typographic elements are, if you go to your type tool here, go to type glyphs, your drop-down menu glyphs, and then it pulls up these long list of glyphs depending on what font you're on. So for instance, if I was doing, let's see, in this case it'd be January 19th, 2017. So in the middle of the January and the 19, it'd be cool if I added a little glyph to it, and then I can adjust the size. This just adds a little bit more style element to the rest of the document. So that's another way to add a style. And as you can see, there's actual, it almost looks like clip art, the way that they have it. And you're welcome to use these symbols to create, I mean, there's hearts. Lots of fun things here. So you can use these glyphs, just you can change the font here, Times New Roman. Oops. And that gives a whole new library of glyphs. Each font family will have its own. If it's a fairly new font, it probably won't have very many characters to choose from. If it's a font that's been around for decades, then you'll have a ton to choose from. Like Times New Roman's been around forever. So there's lots of characters you can choose from. So get creative, have some fun with this assignment. Don't get overwhelmed. You don't have to use the pen tool. I was just trying to show you some ways to kind of add flourish to your typography. But just go to that website and you can kind of find some fun wedding fonts to use that are clean and classic and will help make your invitation look very nice. Come to the multi-session tomorrow if you have any questions. I'd love to see you guys all there. Pass off assignments, get help, whatever you need. Are there any questions before we end today? You guys have been great. Thanks for sticking around. I know it's late for some of you. So no questions? Okay. Well, thanks for coming, guys. We'll see you tomorrow. Have fun. And again, this will be posted, the demos will all be posted tomorrow. See you later. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.